Hello everyone, I'm Charlie Danis of Capital Athletics. Well, it is a big week in Capital Athletics. It's Otterbein week as the Cardinals come to town to take on the Crusaders at Bernlohr Stadium. And joining me now is the head coach of the Capital football program, Craig Candeto. Well, Coach, before we get to that matchup with the Cardinals, you had a road matchup against Mount Union. On the surface, it looks like another ho-hum blowout victory for Mount Union as your guys lost 62-7 to the Purple Raiders. But positives to take away from this game. I want to first start with the running game. 172 rushing yards against the Purple Raiders. This was a team that on average was giving up around like 80 or 90 against their first three opponents. That had to be a positive going forward.
It was. We were able to move the ball at times, and they're a very good defense. I mean, they have 11 great football players on defense. So there were some positives, especially in the first half. We moved the ball okay. The first two drives, we came up like a yard or two short of getting first down. So, but then we were able to string together a couple drives there, one in particular when we scored. And, it's kind of frustrating when you're celebrating one touchdown for the game. But, it's what nobody else has done on them this year, so we do take that as a positive. So a lot of missed assignments, a lot of times where we just got beat physically. But for the most part, there were some positives there.
Another big positive, you were only down 21-7 at the half. To put that in perspective, last year, down 49-0 to Mount Union. And like you said, scoring that touchdown, Zach Sheridan getting into the end zone. The previous three opponents for Mount Union were all shut out by the Purple Raiders. Again, another positive.
Right. It's going to be interesting to see the rest of the year to see if anybody plays Mount that close in the first half, because they are a very good football team, and I fully expect them to make a deep run into the playoffs again. But we were down 21-7 at half, like you said. Played relatively well in the first half and stayed with them toe-to-toe with the number 2 team in the nation. And, they came out in the second half and kind of imposed their will on us there. But, some positives from that first half.
So let's now move on to the next opponent. Well, Coach, it's Otterbein week, and you have a rather interesting nickname for the team, that Team in Westerville. Before we get into this week's matchup with the Cardinals, let's talk about the world rivalry. I feel like that word is so loosely thrown about. Like, say a couple of teams contending for championships get together 2, 3, 4 years consecutively, and they go at it. And people instantly brand it, oh, that's a rivalry because both those teams are doing so well. Well, no, because there isn't a history. The teams haven't met as long as other teams. When you think of a rivalry, what do you think of?
Teams that have played for a long time. I think it's funny now teams will make up trophies and make up belts and things like that, like you're saying. But it's got to go way back, in my opinion. Back in the old days when they're playing football, possibly with no face masks, possibly leather helmets, those are the rivalries that are really entrenched and really have a lot of special meaning to them.
You played in one of the best rivalries in college football, that being the Army-Navy game. I would imagine that in rivalries such as those, there is a level of hate, but also a strong level of respect. And to me, that's what makes a great rivalry. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, yeah. I mean, you have to... on the surface, you don't like the other guys, but play on the field speaks for itself, and hopefully it's a good, clean rivalry on the field. And at the end of the game, hopefully there is that mutual respect, because, I think you always have to respect for your opponent. So it doesn't matter how much you dislike them on the football field or not, but you always want to have that respect at the end of the game.
We're talking with Craig Candeto as the Crusaders get set for their annual rivalry game with the Cardinals of Otterbein. Coach, obviously a big game. Sometimes teams can get too hyped up. They can get too juiced up before a big game like this. As a coach, as a player, how do you try to rein in that energy, especially at the beginning of the game?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good thing for us to have to rein our energy in, because we know our guys are ready. And we actually had that conversation as a staff this morning with, how do we keep these guys focused on today? Focused on practice today and not so much Saturday, because we know they're going to be ready Saturday. It's just not overlooking the days that it takes to get there to win a football game. So, I think we don't overhype it. It is what it is. And when you play a rivalry game, I don't think you have to build it up. It's already built itself up. So just continue to help those guys, stay in every single moment as we go through and not look at the huge picture of this is a huge game for us. Just take it one step at a time like we preached all year. But again, I think it goes back to what we say as coaches, and we know those guys will be ready to go. We don't have to pump it so much.
So let's now talk about this year's version of Otterbein. It starts with their quarterback, Kevin Green, 61% completion percentage, 4th best in the OAC in terms of passing yards with 802, 5 touchdowns on the season. What problems does Green pose for your defense?
They're very efficient through the air. I mean, those numbers that you just stated right there, he does a great job distributing the football, and he's gotten better every single week, in my opinion. And they like to spread the field. They don't run it a ton. You know, their rushing yards are down in the conference, but they do like to throw the football and get it out of his hands quick.
So, Coach, let's continue the discussion on the Otterbein offense. They also have a darn good wide receiver in Julian Lowe, 454 receiving yards. That's best in the OAC, and his 6 touchdowns is second best in the conference. It's really going to help Green's cause throwing to a guy like that. What's the approach that your young secondary has to take when going up against an elite wide receiver like Lowe?
Yeah, I think, one, we've got to tackle well. He's going to get his catches probably. He gets the ball in his hands. We've got to rally to the football and make tackles. I think that's one of our biggest issues that we've struggled with when we struggled on defense is tackling the football. You'll see, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we coached 200-plus yards after the first missed tackle, So a guy like that that's as talented as he is, he's going to get the football every once in a while, but we've got to tackle him when he doesn't minimize those big plays.
Let's switch sides now. Linebacker Drew Irvin, one of the best linebackers in the OAC, is 45 tackles, is third best in the OAC. So what needs to happen for your offense to have success against the Cardinal defense?
Yeah, we've got to be physical. Drew's a good player, and he's shifted over from running back last year, so this is his first year as a linebacker. He's a big physical presence over there. They don't have a lot of returners on that side of the ball from last year, so a lot of new faces for us. But we've got to do what we do and take care of the football, and we feel like we'll have some success.
Finally, Coach, Capital hasn't beaten Otterbein since 2011. You have yet to beat Otterbein while here at Capital. What would a win against the Cardinals mean for this program going forward?
That'd be huge, not only for the rivalry game, but also for where we are in our season right now. We're basically sitting the exact same place we were last year as far as our record. Now I feel that we're a better football team. We've played a little tougher schedule than we did the year before. But we're at that pivotal point right now. We're 2-1 in the conference, 2-2 overall. To be able to go 3-2 right now is just going to give us so much more momentum going into that second half of the season. It's hard to believe this is Game 5. We're almost midway through our season. At the end of this game, it will be exactly halfway through. So just being able to give us that momentum going into the second half. We talked about going into October being 5 games, just continuing to build that process. But to beat a team like this, that's a rivalry. We haven't beaten them. It was we kind of got embarrassed last year at their place. They put it on us pretty good. So our guys are excited, and I'm very excited. We've been counting this one down for a while. When we started camp, I always asked the guys how many days until we beat those guys, and they would know exactly how many days. So we're sitting at 4 right now, so we're really close, and we're ready to go.
All that matters is beating that team up in Westerville. Coach, thanks so much for joining us.
Appreciate it.
That was head coach Craig Candeto joining us here on the Craig Candeto Show as the Crusaders get set to take on the Cardinals of Otterbein at Bernlohr Stadium. For Capital Athletics, I'm Charlie Danis. We'll see you next time.